Again, I will introduce myself. I am David Blundell, your resident anthropologist, to guide you through a course for the understanding of Taiwan in terms of its cultural and ethnic structure. It's going to be a very wonderful and exciting semester for us, and we have great diversity in the class. So I will again introduce myself. I am from Santa Monica, California. It's a place that has 300 days of sunshine, perfect weather. I just came from there last week, and it was a place where I grew up. And my mother was the president of the American Field Service. She is hosting students, many foreign students at the house and in the community for high school. And I decided that if I'm going to study abroad, I would choose a similar program. And I went with the School of International Training out of Vermont. And I went to a country called Sri Lanka, this place here. And I arrived there when I was 22. And I decided to stay and learn their language and culture and make it a career to study in Southern Asia. I got myself to Thailand. I studied at Dhammasat University. And then I came to Taiwan for a music concert. Got hired at the Department of Anthropology and continued teaching for years, working in terms of language and culture, archaeology, publishing, and making films. I went back to California to continue my research at Berkeley and again teaching at UCLA at the University of California. And I decided to join this program in Taiwan and Asia Pacific Studies here at this university because I found it to be exciting to be among an international community interested in Taiwan and the region. So my background tools, and I will show you a few slides, include my desk. I live in Hualien, and that's on the east coast of Taiwan. That's someplace here, right there, and it's very attractive for me to live there. And I do my studies for the understanding of Southern Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Asia-Pacific region. I study its history, religion, archaeology, ethnology, visual communication. I make films, and of course symbolic anthropology, and I do atlas mapping at Berkeley, and my centerpiece of interest is on aesthetics. I'm going to talk about all of the subjects in the course and how anthropology is applied to Taiwan studies. If you have questions, please interrupt, raise your hand, let me know what you are interested in further. And last week we made a note of additional topics to the syllabus. I'm working on that, and to bring in some guest speakers based on specific areas of your interests. And this is just a list of my courses. And my publications. And how I'm working on the development of the interrelationship of languages in the Pacific region. that are somehow sourced from Taiwan through prehistory, and I'm going to talk about that as well. I'm going to dedicate a section for the power of language. First, I want to look at the map here, where Taiwan is located. And it appears to be an island today, yet it's on the continental shelf. And you can see by this area here, this is the shelf. And during the last ice age, around 15,000 years ago, this was the shore of Asia. And so then it put Taiwan again on the east coast. It's part of the shore. And this flat area was a grassy plain. And people then could walk across and inhabit the region that is now Taiwan over 15 to 30,000 years ago. With the global warming situation from the last ice age, the sea level has risen to an area that is now the coast of China and making Taiwan an island, with the Taiwan Strait separating the island from the mainland. So there were people inhabiting Taiwan when it was part of East Asia. So therefore, people in the Paleolithic period did not need to come by boat. They came tracking large animals, hunting, and they lived along the east coast of Taiwan in caves. Those caves are there today, and they can be visited to find the remains of the Paleolithic people. Taiwan is on an area of great uplift. About a centimeter a year, the island is being uplifted and pushed to the northwest. On a regular basis, I live on the east coast where I can feel the earthquakes frequently, and I know the island is moving. Yes, and on September 21st of 99, Taiwan was uplifted 8.5 meters in a single quake in Nantou, in the center of the island. And it was a quake that people could feel it from Taipei to Kaohsiung. It was a quake that rocked the island. But most of the earthquakes are just the gentle nudging of the island, and it's a gradual uplift. And we're going to talk about what the island is about today, how it was formed, its rock, and the environment of the island. As you can see, the island, it has a massive central range, and it has a coastal range here. And this is called the longitudinal Rift Valley, this area. And the west part of Taiwan is more of a plain down to the south, and the hilly north in Taipei Basin is here. And one significant aspect of Taipei is that there is a volcano at Yangmingshan that last erupted 400,000 years ago, blew its top and filled in the area that is now Taipei Basin, giving it very fertile land. So the island is quite diverse, and it provided for the environment of people to live in a different way of life. If they lived on the plains and the basins and the valleys, along rivers, in the high mountains, all of Taiwan was lived in and utilized over many thousands of years by different peoples of different languages. So when you think of Taiwan as a people, then we have to consider the great diversity of these people over a length of time of many thousands of years. So when Taiwan became an island, there was another human event that happened, and that is people started coasting down rivers to the estuaries in the mainland, and then found their way across the Taiwan Strait about 6,500 years ago to land on the coast of Taiwan, the west side, probably the northwest, and started inhabiting areas and utilizing the Taiwan river basins, estuaries, and lagoons at first, and then moving into the interior. We don't know exactly what language they were speaking at that time, but it's assumed to be the origin of the Austronesian language family, and it has built up many subdivisions, of which the languages then became distinct. And we're going to talk about that in terms of how the people utilize the landscape, the land, and especially in terms of their resources that they could gather. This is a picture that I got in Vietnam, and it shows the island of the Philippines, Hainan, and this area here is called the Sunda Shelf. And you can see it also here, part of it here, that's the upper side, and this is the lower side. And it was a subcontinent, and shallow seas in it. And so the people, they were able to come across and inhabit caves. And they made stone tools that were known as choppers, that were rough, to be held in the hand, and basic tools of the Paleolithic age. And so all of the stone that you find in Taiwan, and then their technology comes from the different regions. And this is one of the first maps showing the island of Taiwan at the top. And the Philippines, this is the tropical line here. And all the other islands that were charted by navigation. Yeah. What else do you see in this picture?
Hmm? You know, like these countries, or more like geographical? Like, you want to say more like the shelf pattern?
Okay.
Was it connected to Philippines?
Okay.
Okinawa?
Okay, so Okinawa, actually the islands of Okinawa come just almost to Hualien. You know, they're very, very close by. And so this is an island chain that comes down this way. And this tectonic, the plate, known as a tectonic plate, is being, the Philippine plate is being uplifted this way and pressing up towards the northwest and crushing up against what is now the island of Taiwan. And you can see these ridges down here. And these ridges are being, again, at the top of the ridge, there's an island. These are now the peaks of mountains that are being uplifted and against the island of Taiwan. So here you can see this coastal range here, this coastal range along here, and then there's another range down here that's being uplifted and then will merge against this coastal range and cause another coastal range. And then this coastal range will then merge into the central range. And each in succession, each rift and range and ridge will then be compacted, as this side of Taiwan is on the continental shelf, and it's holding its own as East Asia, and this plate is being forced up against the continent and creating this wrinkled effect. Japan is also being forced in that direction, and then there, on the top of Japan there is another plate. It's called the North American Pacific Plate that is again driving Japan up towards the west. And there was last spring an earthquake from that plate that caused a tsunami in Japan, and so it is also being pressed up against the continental plate. And so all of the island formations, including the Philippines, are on this crack between plates, and also because of these plate interactions, they cause the fault down to the magma, where there is volcanic action, creating volcanoes. And altogether, this would be an edge of the Ring of Fire that is a part of the Pacific. And what you're seeing is that Taiwan becomes the highest place in East Asia. And it's higher than any other place in Fujian. This is wrinkled, of course, but not as wrinkled or as high as the island of Taiwan. But when you look at this geomorphology of the map, you can see all of these pressure ridges throughout the continent, all being pressed and formed. And then you have Hainan just sitting out there, quietly. So we talk about the Paleozoic before the formation of the island, and we have deep accumulation of coral reefs, sand, mud, building up along the eastern margin of the Asian continental landmass. New layers of material were constantly being built up, and these accumulations were covered and compressed. And they cemented to form limestone that eventually became marble. And so when I take my train from Hualien, this area here, known as Qing Shui, the cliffs, they're marble and limestone cliffs along here, and it creates this very turquoise blue water, and was given the name Formosa from these cliffs, because they were so verdant green and beautiful, and white limestone and marble down into the sea. So the word paleo means older, and the Mesozoic means the middle Zoic period of 70 million years ago. And the Earth's crust began to undergo a major uplift, and this caused Taiwan to rise out of the sea. The island is limited in area to 36,000 square kilometers, and it's an island series and continental plate system considered a treasure for research to be geographically endowed by nature. First of all, Taiwan is situated on the far eastern margin of the Eurasian continental landmass in the westernmost portion of the Pacific Basin. Also, it is in the volcanic island arc. From the perspective of plate tectonics, about 2 million years ago, the Philippine sea plate collided between Hualien and Taidong, forming the coastal range in the Huadong longitudinal rift valley. So the island formation as we know it pretty much today is dating back to about 2 million years. Although it was not an island, it was a formation. When we consider the big island of Hawaii, Hawaii is higher than Taiwan, and it has been a continuous volcanic growth shield plate island, and it has formed from the ocean floor to over 4,000 meters in less than 1 million years. And that is because the volcanic system, especially the shield type continuous flowing lava building up on that island from a single hot point in the mid-Pacific, has created the island in a very short time. And Taiwan has also developed over millions of years, but in its present shape within the last 2 million years. So as we can see that this Rift Valley, I don't know if anyone has experienced the Rift Valley. It's very splendid because you have mountains on both sides of you, and it reminds me very much of traveling in Norway, where you have these deep valleys and high mountains and very green, natural, and splendid. And then we have active volcanism. And we have in Taiwan, from that, a myriad of hot springs. Sometimes I will go up to Yanmingshan and I find a trail along a stream in the forest, and I go at night. And I just follow it up, following it and following. And then there will be a crack in the rock. And I will find some hot water flowing out into a pool. And I test the temperature.
It's hot.
Yes, and I will sit in it. And then from there, through the trees, I can see the twinkling lights of the city of Taipei below me. And I'm sitting there completely in pristine nature, in my own natural rock spring. And I think of all of the millions of people living in Taipei, and only I have this beautiful natural spring out of the earth, hot water to sit in. And it's just perfect. It's just, you just have to get off the where other people are going and find your own way through the forest along a stream, and eventually you'll find a crack where the hot water comes out into the stream and creates a pool of hot water. I am surprised that Taiwan does not utilize its hydrothermal energy for more people. People, they do their best. They try to pipe it out from the mountain to their houses. In Iceland, there's a kind of community awareness in a place called Reykjavik. Reykjavik means where the geyser spills out in the bay. And the whole city is utilizing its hydrothermal spring-fed hot water in such a beautiful way that everyone has the opportunity to have their hot spring at home. One of the best kept secrets. But it could be used in that way for people in Taiwan, because the whole island has the spring potential. So I think this is one of the sources of energy, of which there are many in Taiwan. But most of the indigenous people, when they were thinking about inhabiting Beitou, they were afraid, because there was a sulfur smell, and they thought it was the place of the shaman, like the Siberian, the craft of spirits would be gathering there at the cauldron, at the witch's cauldron. And they seemed to want to stay away. They didn't utilize it. Okay, so now let's go to, so what we see here is the impact of the Philippine sea plate there. And as I mentioned, at 1 centimeter per year, causing this geologically recent deep oceanic sedimentary rocks to rise up. The southern part of Taiwan is mud slate, and the slate comes in thin layers, and it has been uplifted in Pingdong, in this region here. And so when we look at houses and the construction of that region among the Paiwan and the Lukai, it's all coming out of what kind of rock people have to utilize for their buildings. So the places in Taiwan were utilized according to what natural resources in the rock or foliage, the timber, the bamboo, that they had to use to make their place of habitation. And very distinctive. So the high mountains, when I first got to Taiwan, I climbed about 20 of the highest peaks. And there's at least 100 or maybe 200 peaks over 3,000 meters in elevation. And you can take a walk. You can come up here in Ilan County, somewhere along Taiping-shan, and you can go to Huanshan and walk. There is a trail that goes right along the top of the island, around 3,000 meters, and you can walk a few hundred kilometers. And you're above the sea cloud. It's perfect air quality, and you just see this massive, beautiful landscape of forest on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other. And it reminds me of walking the Muro Trail of the Sierras. It's a place of high elevation, rocky, most of it above timberline, and just pristine mountain wilderness. And again, I wonder why all of the millions of people down in Taipei are down in their basin working their daily life, and they could be on these high alpine peaks. And I do meet a few people now and then on the trail. But these are mostly people from Kaohsiung, and they're alpine enthusiasts. And there are clubs in Kaohsiung where people start from there and they go through the Central Range, climbing and on the trail, and they make it a point to camp and meet with indigenous people and camp with them. And I think that's really a splendid way to spend a couple of weeks doing that. Also, if you have a bike, a trail bike, some of these trails are adapted for those bikes, and you can take a bike up there as well. And that's even more interesting. And you don't need to worry that much about your provisions. You know, when I camp in the wilderness in North America, I need to plan for everything, to pack with me. But in Taiwan, as soon as you round the corner on the trail, there's a vendor with the hot tea eggs and noodles waiting for you, and you can just sit down and have your lunch or snack and go to the next. So it's a very convenient hiking. You don't need to bring much, and you just need to have the motivation to do it. I think motivation is the most difficult. Not to think about where you're going or what you need, but just to pick up and get up in the high country on the trail. And so when I first got there, I decided that Taiwan had so much to offer. Although I came here for the music, I found much more. Okay, now we have the Tropic of Cancer. What is that? And let's go back to that map. This is the tropical line. And you can see the island of Taiwan is in three parts. And the lower part is cut through by this tropical line. What is the Tropic of Cancer? It's here. Goes across India, Myanmar, Burma, South China, and across the Pacific to the Hawaiian Islands. Taiwan is about equal. The Hawaiian Islands are just below the tropic. Baja California touches it. Coming from Santa Monica, crossing into Mexico, I would take the drive down Baja and to a place called La Paz. And La Paz is just above the Tropic of Cancer, and it's all desert. You go down the highway a few miles, crossing the tropical line, and suddenly there are palm trees. And I thought, that's strange. Then I come to Taiwan, and I'm driving down along the coastal highway from Hualien, and I cross the tropical line, and there are palm trees. Of the northern cold streams mixes on the tropical line with the warm streams that are coming up from the equator. So this is the equator. This is the most tropical area, and the streams are moving up, 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 and going out. And in California, they're coming down, 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 hit the tropical line, and move across out. So the circulation of the tropics is between the equator, the tropical line of Cancer in the north and Capricorn in the south. Between the two tropical lines, we have the tropics. And it's so distinct. It's so much real tropical. And when you cross these lines over here in Chiayi, suddenly Taiwan becomes perpetual summer. Taidong is located right here. So Taidong is at one end of this Rift Valley, and Hualien is at the north edge. And Hualien is just above the tropical line, and therefore we have more cold current weather. And Taidong has all tropical current weather. And just, they're only a few hundred kilometers apart, and such a big difference. So where I live in Hualien, I live right on this this peninsula, this edge here, and near the harbor. And because it's jutting out on a bay, I get the north wind, and the north wind comes right against the house where I live. And I hear the whole night howling. Ooh. And I close all the windows, and still that sound gets through. But if I'm in Taidong, there's no sound at all. It's just balmy, tropical, and because its breeze is a comforting south breeze. So there's always a south breeze here, and the north breeze here, and they come to the middle and out. And another reason that we don't have palm trees in Hualien and you have them in Taidong is because of the wind, the continuous north wind blowing. But in the summertime, the south tropical zone moves up to Hualien. So in the summer, Hualien is very similar to Taidong. But in the winter, Hualien is very much north, and Taidong remains south and insulated from the north wind. So Taiwan has very distinct areas. And where you live, if you live on the northern exposure, southern, on the east coast, in the central range, down in the southwest, like in Chiayi, you're going to have very different climatic and weather situations that are so different. At the Liwu River that flows down from Puwan Mountain and creates this Taroko world-class park. And that is right through here. And this is this national park at Taroko is the only place in the world where you have a national park that goes from sea level. It's on the ocean. Part of the park boundary is on the beach. And you go inland 40 miles, and you're up at 3,700 meters. And it can be snow-covered. And you can drive within a few hours from sea level to one of the highest places in the Pacific within one park. And that park is just 20 minutes from where I live. so I can just go there anytime. There are no tickets. Just drive in. No reservation. It's not Yosemite. Yeah. You don't need to plan to camp. You just go. And I think one of the reasons I stay in Taiwan is for its freedom. I can go up to any mountain and camp and live, beautifully. And when I'm up there, I wonder why I'm ever going to come down, because there are these pear orchards and plums and peaches and apples. And the farmers who tend to these orchards, they're so friendly. And they just sit on a rock every day and look at this splendid view of endless mountains and ranges and cloud formations below them. Smoke their pipe. And it's such a beautiful place, and dry and crisp. And then I think I have to get down again. But it's so good to stay there. And because of that dry climate, there's a sense of longevity among the people. So many people, even the retired soldiers, they prefer to go up in such a place and build their cabin and live out their years in the dry, cool, crisp climate, and have their orchard and their farm and their cabbage and everything that they need is up there. So this was featured in, I went to Lodong last Sunday to see a movie named Civic, what is that? Ballet. That means the valor of men, a man, the true man, and in all of this nature of northern Taiwan, in that rocky land, in the mountains, is depicted beautifully in the film.